today we are at my mom's house in another part of the state of Pennsylvania in Somerset County, and I am going to be working on getting homemade pierogis made. My family has a strong Eastern European heritage, specifically in what was known as Czechoslovakia, or that we're Slovak people. And making pierogis is something that my family does every year. And usually there's a big day that we have that it's National Pierogi Day, we jokingly say. And all of the women in the family will get together and we will make dozens and dozens and dozens of pierogis, probably between 20 and 30. This year's a little bit different due to the current situation in the world. So I am just going to be working with my mom and maybe my sister to make just a couple of dozen so that whenever we get together in a much smaller fashion this year, we have some of our traditional foods that we can eat. So I'm going to start by making the pierogi dough. When we make pierogis, we usually just do traditional potato and cheese. Sometimes we will do sauerkraut, but today we're just making a couple batches of plain potato and cheese. And the way that our pierogi dough is, and I know there's a lot of different variations that different people will have different recipes that are passed down in their families, but ours is 4 cups of flour, 4 eggs, some oil, maybe about half a cup of water, and a full tablespoon of salt. And my grandma would always say, make sure that you put the full tablespoon of salt in and don't cheat on it or skimp on it, because your dough won't have any flavor. So we're gonna just get this, and a lot of it, when you're making dough, you'll kind of get the feel for it. If you do it a lot, that you'll know, it's good, or it needs a little more of this or a little more of that. That's why I said the measurements are pretty easy going, that it's about this, it's about that, and you just sort of go with the feel of it and what you think the taste is, and you figure it out. You need to get the consistency of the dough correct first. So I have in here, I put 4 cups of flour, and I put, at least a solid tablespoon of salt. I'm gonna crack 4 eggs. Kind of knead it around some till it's nice and smooth and soft. What we do next is run the dough through the pasta roller on the KitchenAid, and then once the dough comes out, we cut it into a little circle like this. And then the next thing we have is a big bowl of potatoes that we just boiled some potatoes and mixed in a whole bunch of cheese. That's a combination of longhorn and sharp cheddar. And then what you do is you take your pierogi, put a little bit of water around the edge, and then pinch it shut. Make sure that all of the filling is sealed inside so that there's no opening.
So, anyone interested in a little bit of history of the pierogi? Well, I think that the actual history of the pierogi is pretty difficult to ascertain. It seems like, from the information I could find, that they don't really know when pierogis first were documented as being in existence. It does seem, however, that the pierogi originated in Central Europe or Eastern Europe, and it has been consumed in these regions long before any of the current political nations existed. One legend relates that in 1238, Hyacinth of Poland visited a town that I cannot pronounce Koscielec, and on his visit, a storm destroyed all the crops. Hyacinth told everyone to pray, and by the next day, the crops rose back up. As a sign of gratitude, people made pierogi from those crops for Saint Hyacinth. Another legend also states that Saint Hyacinth fed the people with pierogi during a famine caused by an invasion. Although my family makes the majority of their pierogis with the traditional potato and cheese, there are many other options that people frequently do. Sometimes we will make some with sauerkraut or dried cottage cheese, and we also will sometimes make them with prunes. When we make our pierogis, we will usually freeze them when they're fresh in a single layer, and then we can keep them for as long as we need until the next holiday when we want to have our pierogis. When we're ready to cook our pierogis, we will place them in boiling water and let them boil until they float. Then once they float to the top, we'll let them cook for probably about another 8 minutes. Or sometimes take one out and taste it and see what you think. And I mean, really, is it a bad thing if you have to sample one early? When they're done cooking in the boiling water, we will take them out and put them in another pan with lots of brown butter and nice brown onions. Sometimes you can give them a little bit of a pan fry if you want them to be a little bit crispier, but honestly, there's no wrong way to eat a pierogi. These next few pictures are of my baba, which is Slovak for grandmother. Baba was actually my great-grandmother. Her name was Susanna Margaret Cherney and later Shima. She was born in January of 1898 and passed away in 1972. This is the person that I am named after. Baba immigrated to the United States from the Koryma region of Czechoslovakia in 1922. She was 24 years old and had a 3-year-old daughter along with her for the trip. This is a picture of my grandmother, who was Baba's daughter. Isn't she beautiful? This is my grandpa in his World War II uniform. This is the earliest picture that we have of my grandma and grandpa together. Could you imagine finding love that young and staying together your whole life? This is my favorite picture of my grandparents. Grandpa must have been home on leave from the war and was playing outside with Gram. Although my grandparents had 5 children, I am sort of partial to this one. This is my mom, Marilyn.
Yeah, they're good. Could be waving.
Something.
Yum.